Okay, there's no need to stick around here, so let's get on the ship. Though apparently it's a bit easier than I thought to accidentally head back into the castle. You know, for some reason I would have preferred to see Yang's wife follow us out here instead of just everyone popping up with the ship barely in view. I also wish the game did more with the husband-wife relationship here. But then it's not gonna do any of the relationships in this story all that well. It's more of a broad strokes overall plot sort of tale than a character-driven one, and it's still interesting enough to keep me invested in what's going on. Hell, I wouldn't mind going through the remake of this game as well. That's definitely a good sign, but as much of a massive step forward as this game was for role-player games in general, and while many aspects have aged actually quite well, I'm certainly gonna keep calling out the things that itch at me. Like, we don't see the ship moving at all when that would have been a good moment to show some form of movement for it as it was getting out of the harbor. With the attention to detail they showed in the opening of the game, they definitely could have pulled off the ship leaving the harbor better. They also could have given the ship's captain a better sprite. Ah well, moving on. Not even a sense of movement while we're in the water and sailing. You'd think they'd have the time and space to do that sort of visual effect on the PSP release. They certainly did a number of other visual updates. It's not nothing if attention was called to it, Edward. This isn't the sort of story where characters talk to each other for the sake of it. Are they just trying to hammer home the fact that Edward isn't built for this kind of adventure or something? Well, it's a good thing we don't have random encounters in the ocean like back in the original Final Fantasy. Just one scripted event, apparently. Should I even bother asking why we're being attacked by the Lord of the Sea, or just resign myself to a boss fight here? I'm sorry. I know I'm just bitching about the visuals in a very old game, but again, this is the PSP re-release. They already did a number of visual improvements over the original, so they definitely could have done more than what we've been seeing from this cutscene. Are you kidding me? All three of Cecile's allies are out of the goddamn... in a frickin' cutscene! When all that's happening is the screen is shaking while the ship is on calm waters. And then we switch to a much better looking cutscene showing our ship being consumed by the whirlpool caused by the Leviathan here. The visual designers most definitely had the means to pull that off better. And that's not even getting into the storytellers. This is the second damn time that Cecile has woken up after a summoned up disaster without his party showing up around him. But this has no reason to happen other than the writers felt that we needed to get Cecile alone in unknown territory for a second time. There was no build-up. This just completely interrupts the previous plot lines we had running for a while. Ah, so this is the town that Cecile stole the crystal from earlier on. Well, it's interesting to see that he's certainly not welcome around here. Thankfully, this guy is dumb enough to do that spell even when we're already in Toad form. Much like a lot of the random encounters that can turn you into a Toad in this game. doesn't look like they sell anything that would let you revert from being turned into a toad. Bit of a missed opportunity here. As much as I like the cold reception here, it would have had more impact if the player was in control of Cecile when the big attack to take the crystal happened. Then we could have shared in Cecile's guilt, but as it is, it just kind of falls flat. Much like the scene where Cecile lost all 3 of the people he was traveling with, along with all the unnamed crew. Okay, so absolutely nothing that they're selling are things we can equip. Not even the stuff meant for a knight. Dear God, that is extremely annoying from the stores in this game. Seriously, we just can't seem to buy enough gear in a given town to really feel like we're upgrading our abilities from location to location with our team. We see some good equipment upgrades just often enough to keep looking into them, but not often enough to feel confident that we're actually going to get better when we get to the next town. Well, not a surprise that the road has been blocked off, but I'm pretty sure we're gonna have to take it to get to Baron since we lost our ship. But then I suppose we're going to have to go through some arbitrary bullshit in order to open that door. Okay, so she just kept hopping away until it became impossible to interact with her more. Really wish we got to see Cecile pull some legitimate war crimes before dealing with this kind of reception. It would have been nice if Cecile had come here by some measure of choice as well. Seriously, this all just came out of nowhere, and I doubt the remake makes this bit feel any more smooth. Well, seems the only way to make progress right now is to talk to one specific person. If those are the origin of all magic, what's with the healing spells? And why are all the offensive spells fire, lightning, and ice? Hell, I don't think wind really does much of anything. Oh, and the music has shifted, so I assume that means things are gonna get important. Fair enough statement, but again, the audience had no part in that. If we're supposed to be punished for our actions, at least let us do those things instead of keeping things vague outside of Cecile grabbing the crystal in an early cutscene and then leaving. It would make things more meaningful. I'm sorry, but what's so bad about the Dark Sword? Seriously, we've seen and heard nothing that implies that this weapon is in any way corruptive. Excuse me for thinking that being a Dark Knight does not translate to being an Evil Knight or something based on what we've been seeing. We just have some edgy armor and a multi-hit move I rarely if ever use because it drains our own health. We're not getting enough justification for Cecile to want to become something other than a Dark Knight at the moment. It literally is just, we will roadblock you so you go through this next dungeon in a costume change, because we don't have a smooth way to really pull this off. I also can't help noticing that Cecile's priorities are not on the crystals that Baron has been grabbing, and he's certainly not showing all that much concern for the allies that have gone missing here. His priority is to just save the girl who got captured in the villain's questionable introduction. It kind of makes Cecile come across as selfish to an extreme, at least to me. Sorry, I can't find it in me to find these two children in any way endearing. Not after we unceremoniously lost Rydia in the ocean. She could come across as endearing, especially with the way she was introduced and the heartwarming bit of her starting to accept Cecile, even though there wasn't any development beyond that. And I'm pretty disappointed the game didn't develop the relationship between Rydia and Cecile more. I would have also liked to have seen Rydia and Rosa become closer, or some more interactions with the other characters. But no, the only characters that are really allowed to bounce off of one another in this game seem to be the two quirky mages we only just met. Two siblings where one of them has to play the arrogant dumbass and the other slaps him and is polite to everyone else. Anyway, two mages and only Cecile as our physical fighter. That's certainly a familiar formation. And again, the characters we've just got are several levels below our main hero. So not only does the game make it tough to really justify going to equipment stores, it makes grinding for experience feel a bit bullshit since we can lose party members on a whim and gain fresh characters out of nowhere. Ugh. Wait, what the hell? So the characters that actually live here don't have the gear that's being sold in their own damn hometown? What is even going on with the equipment in this game? Look, I respect that Final Fantasy IV has so much more of a story going on in it than the first or third game. This is an absolute trendsetter. There's a reason I skipped 3 and very much doubt I'll ever get around to LPing that one at all. But holy shit, they added the tools to get something even better than what they've got here. Give us some more character interactions in a game where the characters have far more definition than the blank slates of before. Give me more reason to be personally invested in what's going on in this world and care about the journeys that each character is going through here. Cecile is our most consistent character, and the only times I've really given a damn about him are when he was whining in bed while still wearing all of his armor, and when he is just absolutely shocked at the destruction of Mist. Everything else, he just doesn't do anything for me. It's that awkward thing where I respect him as the first Final Fantasy protagonist, but I do not like him compared to other protagonists. I'm just not gonna say that he's the worst Final Fantasy protagonist, especially since I could never really get into Final Fantasy II, so I don't know the plot of it that well. But I can certainly say it feels to me like Cecile rates pretty low. He gets the job done, but he doesn't have anywhere near the amount of character interaction or growth to make me like him as a character. Well, it's a good thing I wasn't planning on doing much in this place. This is definitely gonna be a rather hostile bar to be a patron in. Not the same kind of tune we usually get for a dance sequence. Oh dear, that pink light can't be good. Son of a bitch, another transformation. And again, it's something that the item store doesn't sell cures for. This has nothing to do with training here, old lady. It's just that this town hates on us to a hilarious degree. I don't suppose that, girl is gonna give us the same spell again, to reverse, much like the frog spell earlier, will she? Yeah, that fixed it. Kind of surprised they didn't steal our money, equipment, and clothes if they hate us so much. Yeah, nothing of ours has been stolen. Can't help noticing that our black mage doesn't have either pig or toad in his spellbook. Granted, I'm not likely to use those spells in combat, but still, the boy talked himself up as the best black mage in the village. And he doesn't have 2 spells that some random people in the village have. Guess he just has an overrated idea of himself. No, too surprising from a young prodigy, but still. Anyway, while I was tempted to end the clip there, we can still fit more in here. We're going to have a bit of an awkward cutoff point, but I'd prefer to make more progress before ending things here for the moment. Lovely. We've still got a pretty high encounter rate. At least that makes it more likely we're gonna level up sooner, though it's gonna slow us down quite a bit. Again, there's something about random encounters that helps to pace character progression, but give you the chance to better brace yourself for future encounters and all that. I get why modern games want to get away from random encounters, but it just doesn't feel like they've come up with a proper replacement for that sort of thing, at least in my opinion. Seriously, Final Fantasy 12, 13, 15, and 16 feel like they were missing something when they removed random encounters from the mix, and Kingdom Hearts just couldn't quite pull things off without random encounters either. Granted, the action in those games was pretty fun, but okay, for 15 and 16, the action was kind of fun, if occasionally a bit broken. Kingdom Hearts was great as well, probably better than those previous two, but the other games I mentioned, the action is not really much of a draw. 12 has this odd sort of program the AI of the game to fight for you with the Gambit system thing, and 13 has the whole switching around classes and telling the game to pick your moves for you, so you save time thing. But that doesn't change the fact that the Final Fantasy series has random encounters from games 1 to 10, and once they tried to move away from that, things just didn't click into place in terms of character progression, and also just there wasn't as much of a sense of attrition. In the other games, you could get into the same battle playing through the game again and again and turn out to be a different level by the time you get to your destination, which can make those subsequent playthroughs either easier or harder, depending on your luck. But after that cutoff point of 10, it's more like a pain in the ass to try to grind and prepare for later, either by gaining more money or gaining experience points. If you've been to a battle zone often enough, you will know exactly what you're going to have to fight there, and when you will. You have to leave and then come back to see the same enemies. It just makes it feel like so much less of a hassle to get from point to point, removing some of the tension of traveling in the game. In this game, I am tense with every step we take. I have no clue how much effort it's going to take for us to get to our next destination, which isn't helped by how I have no clue how far our next destination is from where we left from. And since this is the PSP Complete Edition, not the Pixel Remaster version, there's no helpful button to temporarily turn off the random encounters in case things go far worse than you planned. So you've got to brace yourself for a good amount of fighting just to get back to town to resupply and sleep in the inn. You just don't get that kind of feeling when traveling in more modern games, really. So as much as I understand why people like the fact that random encounters are out of style now, so many games had them for good reason. And nobody has done anything that really replaces that sort of thing that makes traveling feel like a trial in its own right. If anything, the random encounter rate in this game is really making me regret not grabbing supplies back in the item shop before we left, and I'm getting a distinct feeling that I'm going to probably massively overcompensate in some of the other role-player games that I'm going to LP after this one. And just after I finished talking about random encounters, we had a good space of time where we had no further random encounters. Not really planned, but it did get a bit of a chuckle from me. probably says something that while these two are among the most distinctive characters in this game, I can never really remember which one is Palom and which one is Porum. I either refer to them by their gender or their class. It doesn't help that they were introduced to our team in the most forced manner possible. Everyone else in our team was thrown away for the sheer sake of introducing these two. Bit of an odd moment for us to switch to seeing what's happening elsewhere, but okay, if the plot wants to add some tension here, go ahead. And just what makes those heights especially dangerous? Wait. So we're only getting some measure of explanation for us to want to be something other than a Dark Knight when we're already climbing the damn mountain, and it's when the main villain of the game is saying, oh shit, we can't let him do this. And I'm pretty sure, despite the fact that Cecile isn't going to do so well against this guy, that our two mages are going to just wreck him. Again, nothing against the overall story beat, but it needed more justification to actually make me give a damn. Kane, what makes you think you're going to be more capable than the undead guy who Cecile's blade can't apparently harm? And what blunder is Golbez talking about here? Cecile was down in that scene. And it's not like anyone around him was all that willing to help as the guy with the spear was slapping around the main character. Well, we've got a mountain to climb, and it looks pretty much the same as the mountain path we first found Yang in. Right down to the random skeletons on the dry, cracked ground. Kind of hoping we see some snow on the ground as we go higher, but maybe that's asking for too much attention to detail from this game at this point. Which feels weird to say, considering the attention to detail we saw back before we first gained frickin' control. Well, Cecile's blade is doing more to the skeletons than I was afraid it would. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he's essentially going to be escorted by the lower-level children. Or at least I think that's what's supposed to happen. Is he over-leveled here? If I remember right, those souls are going to absorb fire magic. That's going to make things annoying for our Black Mage. I don't think they're hurt by healing magic either, but it's probably a better idea to save the healing magic for actual healing instead of offense. Again, we have no clue how far we have to go, how many fights we're going to have to go through to get there, or our next opportunity to rest. All I know for sure is that in about a minute, I see a reasonable enough moment to cut the clip off, so we don't go over the half-hour mark. I'm sure there might be more efficient ways to handle these guys, but it's not like I can do anything to change how I'm handling it right now. It's just a source of attrition at this point, and while I wouldn't say it's going poorly for us, it's not making the rest of our climb easier. Should I have just slashed at the skeletons since they were on the front line instead of the spears that can absorb fire attacks I never actually threw? And is Cecile over-leveled for this mountain somehow? Well, at least that fight's over and done with.